Yeah, so it manifests in very different ways. There's some days where I can manage multiple things.
Hmm.
There's some days where I'm hyper focused on one thing. And the funny thing about hyper focus is that everything everything else around you just becomes a blur. And that's the only way that I can explain it. It's like a blur, like time stops when you're in the midst of working on this particular thing, and then when you kind of come out of it, it's like 5 hours have gone by, and it literally feels like you've just time traveled,
Yeah.
because it doesn't feel like a 5 hour process. It feels like you're in the midst of these things. So the the manifestation of it is different on different days,
Hmm.
and there's times where I can't even complete a thought, and I have days where you struggle to concentrate, you struggle to stay motivated, you struggle to, like, comprehension,
Hmm.
whether it's the comprehension and perception of time, or the perception of um, just stringing things together. And I tell my wife every now and then, like, my brain has a tendency to shut down mid sentence, and then I can't finish what I'm saying. So I'm just like, ADHD. Like,
Yeah.
and that's really, and that is something that I've dealt with since childhood, and didn't know that it was a thing until one of my children was diagnosed with it, and I'm in
Oh
the
wow.
room with him, and the doctor looks at me and says, have you ever been, like, clinically diagnosed? I was like, no. He's like, you exhibit everything that he's experienced. Like, I can just see how you're sitting in the chair. I can see different things in your movements, your eyes, and all of these different things. And he says, and this wasn't just a one sitting. This was over a period of time.
Yeah.
And I realized then, it was like probably my early 30s, that it's like, okay, I have it. I didn't realize it. I was never on medication. I was not one to vocalize as a kid,
Yeah.
that I had these issues. A lot of times I would just shut down and recluse, and then other times it would act out in tapping and being extra fidgety. And I can remember teachers calling my calling my mom, and my Spanish teacher in particular.
Oh boy.
Senor Miguel is always tapping on the desk, and he's not paying attention. And every time I say something, he's like, "It's big deal." And she's like, "I don't know what to tell you. He's been tapping since he was like 5 years old." And but my tapping was way over the top. It wasn't just like a single tapping.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hitting beats,
You're
and I'm hitting my elbows, and
you're
just
Neil
completely
Peart
zoned
in the
out.
middle of a Rush concert, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's different. Every single day is different, and I had to kind of develop my own self coping mechanisms,
Hmm.
and not even recognizing them as being self coping mechanisms until after the fact.
What are some of those self coping mechanisms that you deploy when you're feeling a certain way?
Well, when I was younger, there was a lot of different things that I would do. Like, baseball was my number one when I was a teenager, and my parents had split when I was in the ninth grade. I was right in my teenage
Mm.
formative years. My dad wasn't in the picture. My mom was working three jobs to support me and
Wow.
my younger brother, my younger sister. My older sister had already moved out, and she was on doing her own thing. So I was kind of just I had experienced all of those emotions, but then I had shut everything off on the outside world. And a lot of times when it came time to actually concentrate, the only thing that would bring me to a center was hearing my baseball coach and hearing his voice. So as I got a little bit older, if I was having a really bad day, I would just go to the batting cage, and I'd take 200 swings. And every time I would swing, I would hear my coach: plant your foot, adjust your hip, adjust your wrist, and these are the things that I would listen to over and over again. And that was kind of my thing. Uh, art, painting, and drawing. I wasn't very good at drawing. I loved painting, oil
Hmm.
paints. I would just start with an empty canvas and just do whatever, just make up scenery, kind of like a Bob Ross type,
Yeah.
scenery
Happy
type deal.
trees. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that would help. But baseball was always the main thing. Music was for a time. And then when I started producing, music became like a job. So I
Yeah.
actually detached from it for a long time and had to kind of rediscover my way into being motivated, because there's a difference between creating for the art, creating for monetary purposes, and
Yeah.
creating to tell stories. And you have to be careful not to lose yourself in one of those things, because if you lose yourself in just making money, you don't the storytelling aspect will suffer.
Yeah.
If you lose yourself in I'm going to do it for the art, then you don't pay attention to where you can actually maximize and monetize that. So there's a lot of different things that play into it. Music used to be a center, and then it ended up not being for a long time. And it was me actually working full time for AEW that I rediscovered how to put myself in a position where it was my center. Um,
Cool.
and it's really kind of hard to put into words with that, but I think setting goals and setting an end date or an end, like, you have to have an end thing. You have to work towards something, because if you work and just work, you lose interest really fast. So it's never been a thing where I just strum. It's never been a thing where I practice. It's always been, I have to get this done.
Yeah.
And that has kind of helped also in the focus aspect, because once it's done, it's like that sense of achievement, no matter how big or how small, that kind of drives you from point A to point B, as opposed to losing your way, trying to grasp at all the different shiny things.
Yeah, I get Catch new episodes of Mental Health Mondays every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Start your week off with a smile and some inspiration.